They forced the alien girl to eat outside until a human sat beside her and sparked a galactic uprising asterisk. The orders crumpled like dry leaves in Alexander Grath's fist. The flimsy alliance paper no match for the pressure of his clenched fingers. His fury, the corner of his mouth curled into a bitter smirk as he tossed the crushed memo onto the rust-stained desk of his prefab quarters. So this was it. Greenville, Iridian Sector. A forgotten outpost on a planet nobody remembered until they needed someone punished without the spectacle of a court-martial. 3 weeks into his exile, and the walls already felt too close, the recycled air too stale, the silence too heavy. A power relay station that hadn't seen conflict since before he enlisted. Great, his once promising military career now reduced to watching blinking lights, running diagnostics, and keeping peace in a settlement where humans were barely tolerated and the local population pretended he didn't exist. His boots thudded against the dusty alloy floor as he grabbed his jacket and headed out. The sky outside was a washed-out orange, the dying sun casting jagged shadows over the stone and metal sprawl of Greenville. He hadn't eaten anything but ration bars for 2 days. Maybe it was boredom, maybe defiance, maybe the part of him still clawing for a reason not to rot away here. But something drove him toward the edge of the settlement, to a low-slung stone building with a curved roof and a hand-painted sign in both standard and the sharp, angular Neridian script. A bell chimed. As he pushed the door open, conversations faltered. Heads turned. Black Neridian eyes blinked at him flat, unblinking, and unreadable. Alex ignored them all, walking to the counter like he belonged there. The proprietor, a stocky alien with facial markings like silver scars, eyed him with thinly veiled contempt. "You serve humans?" Alex asked. "Credit's good." "Food compatible," the alien replied, his standard clumsy but functional. He gestured toward an empty table in the corner. "Sit, order." Alex did, ordering the house special and letting his instincts scan the room. Old habits. It was then he saw her. She moved like a shadow, quiet and small, collecting dishes and wiping tables no one thanked her for. Her skin was a pale emerald, almost translucent at the joints. Silver-white hair was tied back in a loose knot, exposing sharp, delicate features. A girl, no, a woman hidden beneath threadbare clothing and lowered eyes. When she passed a table, the conversation died. No one looked at her. No one touched her. No one acknowledged her. Something twisted in Alex's gut. "What's her story?" he asked when the proprietor brought over a steaming bowl of thick purple stew. The Neridian snorted. "Valerin, dirty blood, do jobs no one want, eat outside only. Inside food tastes bad if they near." Alex said nothing, just watched as the girl finished her shift, received a small container of leftovers, and slipped out the door. He rose a moment later, ordering a second portion and paying double without explanation. Outside, the air had cooled. She sat alone on the curb, spooning cold stew from the container with her bare hands. The wind tugged at her loose sleeves. She didn't look, up until his shadow crossed her path. "Mind if I sit?" he asked. She blinked, confused. "You want to sit here? Fresh air's good for digestion." He sat before she could say no, placing the warm meal beside her. "Thought you might like something hot." She looked at the container like it was a trap. "Why are you doing this?" "Because eating alone sucks," he replied, his voice low but firm. "And because that bullshit about dirty blood? I've heard it before. Different names, same lies." From the diner window, eyes glared. One by one, figures stood, muttering, pointing. The girl shrank. "They're angry," she whispered. Alex smirked. "Good. I've been bored out of my mind." She stared at him, and something inside her shifted hesitance, melting into a flicker of curiosity. Of hope. I'm Inara, she said. He extended a calloused hand. Alex Grath. Now eat, before it gets cold. Neither of them noticed the proprietor step outside, muttering into his communicator, or the 3 uniformed officials already making their way through the square, drawn by a single act of defiance. 1 human, 1 Valerin, and a meal shared on the wrong side of an invisible line. Asterisk, the wind carried the scent of ozone and dust as the Neridian officials approached, ceremonial robes trailing. Like shadows, their eyes obsidian and cold locked onto Alex and Inara, as if the sight alone might burn holes into the ground. Inara stiffened beside him, her container forgotten on her lap, fingers clenching the edge like it could anchor her to the planet. The tallest of the 3 stepped forward, facial markings shimmering beneath the setting sun. Authority radiated off him in waves, as did contempt. Human soldier, he intoned, voice clipped and formal. You violate local custom. Remove yourself, now. Alex took another slow bite of his stew, chewed, swallowed. Curbs not labeled. I figured it was open seating. You sit beside unclean caste. Another official hissed, eyes darting toward Inara like she was filth incarnate. Valerins. Eat separate. This is the way. Your way, Alex said flatly, setting his container aside and rising to his full height. At 6'2", he towered over the officials, muscles tight beneath his uniform. Not mine. Inara flinched as the second official turned on her. You bring shame. Speaking to an off-worlder. Polluting his mind. You will be reported. She lowered her gaze, shame curling her spine like a whip. But before she could speak, Alex stepped forward, his voice low and sharp. Don't talk to her like that. The 3rd official, younger, looked incredulous. You disrespect Greenville traditions? We report you to your commander. Commander Harris? Alex shrugged. He'll love that. I'm sure he'd love to hear how you treat sentient beings. Like trash, the officials exchanged glances. Unease crept in. They hadn't expected resistance, especially not from a human wearing Alliance colors. This is not finished, the lead official growled. Your actions have consequences. They turned and disappeared into the deepening dusk, their threats hanging in the air like smog. Alex sat back down, heart still pounding, his pulse a war drum beneath his skin. Inara hadn't moved. No one has ever stood up for me before, she said quietly, voice trembling. And everyone else here is an asshole, Alex muttered, nudging her food container closer. Eat. You need your strength. She hesitated, then obeyed, spooning the stew with delicate shaken fingers. They ate in silence, the kind that feels less like awkwardness and more like shared understanding. After a while, Inara spoke. The things they said, about Valerins. They're lies. Alex glanced at her. I figured. She looked down at her hands. Centuries ago, our worlds were at war. Valerin lost. Instead of peace, they spread stories, said we carried a disease. Sighed we had to be quarantined, segregated, kept compliant for everyone's safety. But the disease? It never existed. It was propaganda. A reason to enslave us without chains. Alex's jaw tightened. That's beyond screwed up. It's just how things are, she murmured. Doesn't mean it's how they should be. For a moment, their eyes met. Something unspoken flickered between them, recognition, maybe. Or something older. Something raw. You're not like the others, she said. I get that a lot, Alex replied. Usually right before I'm court-martialed. That drew a quiet laugh from her. Small, genuine. It made something unfamiliar tighten in Alex's chest. Why are you really here, Major Grath? She asked after a beat. Greenville isn't exactly a desirable posting. Alex leaned back, letting the night settle around them. Let's just say I have a problem with authority. especially when they're wrong. Like tonight, she observed. He nodded. Exactly like tonight. A few stars began to wink through the sky as the last light bled from the horizon. Inara stood suddenly, brushing off her hands. I should go. If they see me with you too. Long. Let me walk you home, Alex offered, already on his feet. She hesitated. That would only make things worse. Then when can I see you again? The question seemed to catch her off guard. Why would you want to? Because I like talking to you, he said simply. And because I haven't had a real conversation since I got posted to this rock. Inara looked away, then back again, her amber eyes searching his. I take my midday meal behind the water purification plant. There's a grove there. Quiet. I'll be there, Alex said as she turned to leave. He reached out instinctively, his fingers brushing hers. Her skin was cool, smooth alien, but warm with life. She didn't pull away. Be careful, Major, she whispered. Neridians don't forget or forgive. Alex, he said gently. And I can handle myself? She stepped into the shadows, and he watched until she disappeared between buildings. A breeze stirred, but the chill didn't reach him. Not tonight. Not after this. He had no idea just how soon those consequences the officials warned him about would arrive or how deep they would cut. But for the first time since arriving on this forsaken planet, Alexander Grath didn't feel dead inside. He felt awake. Asterisk. The morning came earlier than expected. A shrill buzz from Alex's communicator sliced through the fog of uneasy sleep, jolting him upright. The walls of his prod quarters pressed in like a cell, cold and sterile. His hand fumbled across the knitstand, locating the device with a grunt. Grath, he mumbled, throat dry. Major, came Commander Harris's voice, tight and unmistakably pissed. My office, 700, no excuses. The line went dead. Alex sat for a moment, staring at the cracked ceiling. The weight in his gut wasn't just exhaustion. He knew what this was about. He dressed without a word, tugging on the standard issue uniform with jerky, angry motions. By the time he stepped outside, 2 human MPs flanked his door like statues. Formal, unblinking. Major Alexander Grath, one said. You're to be escorted. Of course I am, Alex muttered, falling into step without protest. They marched him through the settlement's winding corridors. Civilians and Neridians alike paused to watch the procession. Some whispered. Others didn't bother hiding their disgust. Alex ignored them all. Commander Harris's office hadn't changed, still Spartan. Still dim, still heavy with the air of bureaucracy. Harris stood behind his desk, arms folded, expression unreadable. But it wasn't just him in the room. The lead Neridian official from the previous evening stood at attention to the side, obsidian eyes gleaming with something that looked a lot like satisfaction. Major Grath, Harris began, gesturing stiffly to a chair. Sit. Alex complied, posture rigid. Sir, I received a formal request last night from the Neridian Council, Harris said, tapping a sleek datapad on the desk. They're demanding your reassignment, effective immediately. Alex narrowed his eyes. On what grounds? The Neridian stepped forward. Violation of cultural protocols. Interference with caste law. Contamination of a protected class. Protected? Alex scoffed. You treat her like garbage. The Neridian's face remained blank. Valerin female has been taken into protective custody. She will undergo purification to remove foreign influence. Alex surged to his feet before the MPs. Could react, fists clenched. What the hell does that mean? Enough, Harris barked. Major, sit down. The MPs held him back as he gritted his teeth and slowly, reluctantly, lowered himself into the chair. You're confined to quarters until your transport arrives, Harris said coldly. That's an order. The Alliance has approved the transfer. To preserve diplomatic standing, you are no longer needed here. Alex's voice was low and dangerous. You're just going to let them brainwash her? Harris leaned in slightly, eyes narrowing. Watch your tone. Then so quietly that the Neridian wouldn't hear, Harris muttered, Supply closet, East Corridor. 10 minutes. The official took a step back, nodding once before exiting the room. Alex rose. Am I dismissed, sir? You are, Harris said grimly. 10 minutes later, Alex slipped through the base like a shadow. The East Corridor was mostly empty this early in the day. The supply closet door clicked open, revealing Harris already waiting inside, arms crossed, face older than Alex had ever seen it. You've really stepped in at this time, son. Alex wasted no time. Where is she? The municipal building. Basement level. They call it a purification ritual. But it's re-education, Harris said with a grimace. Neurological tampering. Chemical compliance. It's not torture, but it's not mercy either. I'm going in. That's suicide. Alex's jaw set like steel. Then I die. On my feet? Harris sighed and pulled a small chip from his uniform. Security access, lower levels, door overrides. This never happened. Alex took it, fingers tightening around the chip, like it was a lifeline. Why are you helping me? 30 years ago, Harris said, voice softening, I was stationed on Proxima 3. Fell for a local woman. Never acted. Got on the transport when they reassigned me. I've regretted it every day since. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet, Harris muttered. You do this, you're out of the Alliance. Permanently. Alex didn't hesitate. Some things are worth it. The shuttle in Maintenance Bay 3 has stealth capability. Enough to reach the Vigay. Outpost. Use it if you can't resolve this locally. Alex nodded once and vanished into the corridor. He moved fast. The municipal building loomed like a tombstone. Cold, gray, and unwelcoming, but the chip worked. Door by door, floor by floor, he bypassed security systems, ducked cameras, and slipped through restricted areas like a ghost. The basement smelled like sterilized fear. He found her in a small, sterile room, bare walls, no windows. Inara sat on a metal bench, motionless. Her silver hair had been cropped close to the scalp. A gray robe hung loosely on her frame. Her eyes were glassy. Hollow. Inara, Alex whispered. Her head jerked. Up, recognition flickered, then disbelief. Alex? How? No time. He slammed the override into the wall panel. The door clicked open. She didn't move. They injected me with something. Said it would purge the contamination. Can you walk? A slow nod. He took her arm, felt the tremble in her limbs, the fire still alive beneath the layers of suppression. They moved together through the corridors, past locked doors, through cold light and ghostly shadows. Alarms blared before they reached the exit. They know, Alex muttered, drawing his sidearm. Stay close. 2 Neridian guards rounded the corner. Alex moved before they could raise their weapons, too. Stun shots, quick and clean. You didn't kill them, Inara said as they passed the unconscious forms. They're not the problem, Alex replied. They're just following orders. They reached the bay. The shuttle was ready. The air hummed with power as the activation code pulsed through the console. The engines came to life just as Neridian security burst into the hangar. They were. Too late. The shuttle tore into the sky, climbing toward the stars, toward Vega, toward freedom. Alex leaned back in his seat, one arm around Inara's shoulders as she slumped against him, dazed but alive. You're giving up everything for me, she whispered. I'm not giving up anything that matters. Outside, the void welcomed them. Inside, something fragile. and Defiant began to burn hope. Asterisk Vegas Station shimmered like a steel blossom at the edge of known space, its 8 vast docking arms reaching out like petals into the dark. Built as a refueling and diplomatic outpost during the Consortium War, it now floated in relative obscurity, far enough from major trade lanes to be ignored, close enough to be useful when trouble came knocking. Trouble had just arrived. The stolen shuttle carrying Alex and Inara approached under stealth protocols. As they neared, proximity alarms flared, prompting immediate scans. But before the station's automated defenses could lock on, a manual override came through, laced with a high-priority authorization code. Clearance accepted. The automated voice announced, "Private Docking Bay 12. Proceed." Alex let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That override better be from Hill, he muttered, guiding the shuttle in with a pilot's precision. Inara, still pale from the sedative lingering in her bloodstream, pressed a hand to the viewport. "There are Valerin ships docked here," she murmured. "Some of them are old-world designs. I haven't seen them since before the Exodus. Looks like we're not the only ones who made a move," Alex said grimly. The shuttle touched down with a gentle hiss, landing struts extending into the reinforced deck with a solid thunk. As the hatch opened, a smell of polished steel and recycled oxygen greeted them, sterile, clean, familiar. A figure waited on the platform, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Captain James Hill. Stocky, weathered, and not a man who wasted time. "Major Grath?" he called out, stepping forward. "Captain Hill, Commander Harris sent word. Said you'd be bringing a guest and a storm behind you." Alex stepped out, his arm steadying Inara as she descended the ramp. Her close-cropped hair and gray institutional clothing made her look more fragile than she was. Hill's sharp eyes flicked over her, calculating, but not unkind. "Welcome to Vegas Station, Miss Inara," she said, lifting her chin slightly. "Valerin diaspora, former indenture class." Hill's jaw twitched. "We've been expecting you. Come quickly." He led them through a maze of quiet corridors, avoiding major foot traffic. Vegas Station wasn't at full alert yet, but tension hung in the air like static before a lightning strike. "You're not the only ones making waves," Hill said as they walked. "Since your stunt on Neridian, there have been uprisings on 3 of their colony worlds. Civil protests, work stoppages, even coordinated broadcasts calling for independence." Inara's eyes widened. "They're rising?" Hill glanced back. "They're rallying. Around you, mostly. Subspace is crawling with footage of that moment on the curb. You sitting beside her. Neridians confronting you. Valerin's watching." "I didn't mean to start a revolution," Alex said. "Revolutions rarely start on purpose," Hill replied. "They start when someone finally says no." They entered the station's medbay, gleaming, white and too bright. Dr. Eliza Kwan, a petite woman with clinical focus and surgical hands, waited beside a holographic display of Inara's scan. "This," she said, pointing to a glowing image of the neural implant nestled at the base of Inara's skull, "isn't just a tracker." Alex stepped closer, arm still protectively around Inara. "What is it?" "It's integrated into her nervous system. And these," she highlighted hair-thin tendrils, branching into the spinal cord, "are secreting a compound. Neuromodulators. Suppressants. Whatever this is, it's been altering her brain chemistry." Inara closed her eyes. "That's why I couldn't fight. Why everything always felt dulled, muted." "They've been sedating your resistance," Dr. Kwan confirmed. "Not overt control. More like chemically induced compliance." "They drugged an entire people into submission," Alex said, his voice low with fury. "For generations." Before Kwan could respond, a voice cut through the medbay like a scalpel. "You're going to want to hear what I have to say." All heads turned. A tall, broad-shouldered man in a Black Alliance Special Operations uniform stepped into view, flanked by 3 operatives. "Commander Marcus Blackwood," he said crisply. "I'm here on behalf of Earth Command. You've officially kicked over a nest we've been watching for years." Hill's face hardened. "Nobody told me Spec Ops was involved." "Need to know," Blackwood said, not apologizing. He glanced at the hologram. "We've long suspected Neridian neural manipulation. This confirms it. We have to move. Earth Command wants the girl and the device. Now." Alex stepped forward. "She's not a device carrier. She's a person." Blackwood raised an eyebrow. "Good. Then she can testify. Alliance Council's called an emergency session, and we need to show them this." An alert blared overhead. Red lights strobing across the med bay. Hill tapped his com. "Report," a voice crackled back. "Neridian strike ships have exited hyperspace. They're demanding immediate surrender of the fugitive Valerin and her human accomplice." Blackwood's jaw clenched. "Damn it. They moved faster than expected." "We don't have time for procedures," Dr. Kwan warned. "I can remove the implant, but it's delicate. I need at least 15 minutes. "Do it," Blackwood ordered. "We'll hold them off." Alex helped Inara to the surgical table. Her hand found his. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I've got you," he said, pressing his forehead to hers. "Always." As Kwan began the procedure, Blackwood stood beside Alex. "There's something you should know. The resistance movements? They weren't spontaneous. Alliance intelligence has been supporting them in secret, waiting for a spark." "So we're what?" Alex asked. "A recruitment poster?" "No," Blackwood said. "You're a symbol, and symbols matter." The implant came free with a hiss of surgical gas. Kwan held it up, tendrils curling like the legs of a dead spider. "Preserved it intact," she said. "Evidence." Inara's eyes fluttered open, brighter than before. The haze was gone. "I feel." Awake. Before anyone could answer, Hill burst through the door. "They've breached the outer docking ring." "We've got minutes." Blackwood turned. "We move now." But Inara's voice cut through the tension. "Wait. The Valerin diplomats. They're here, aren't they?" Hill hesitated. "Yes." "They need to see this," she said, pointing to the implant. "The people need to know the truth." Blackwood cursed under his breath. 5 minutes. "That's all I can give you." Alex took her hand. "Let's finish what we started." They stepped out into the corridor. 2 fugitives, 2 symbols, now running toward the one thing that mattered more than escape, the truth. The diplomatic chamber of Vega. Station stood in stark contrast to the cold precision of its medbay and command corridors. Here, polished marble flooring met tall, arched windows that overlooked the stars. Artifacts from dozens of interstellar cultures lined the walls, testaments to the ideal of peace, though today that ideal trembled on the edge of collapse. 3 Valerin diplomats stood at the center of the chamber, draped in flowing emerald robes marked with silver thread. Their skin bore richer, darker tones than Inara's signs of high lineage from the homeworld. Despite their composed expressions, the tension in the room was palpable. "I am Ambassador Torin," said the elder of the trio, bowing slightly. "These are my colleagues, Nara and Kel. We come in the name of a free Valerin people." Inara bowed lower, more formally, her voice steady, despite the adrenaline still coursing through her. "I come in the name of those who have been silenced, and I bring the proof." Dr. Kwan stepped forward, presenting the neural implant in a sealed, transparent container. The device's fine tendrils glistened like cruel metal veins. Nara, the youngest diplomat, recoiled slightly before reaching for it with reverent dread. "We have heard rumors of such things," she said. "But it's not just a tracker," Dr. Kwan explained. It secretes compounds into the subject's spinal fluid, targeting resistance centers in the brain. This isn't passive surveillance. It's neurological suppression. Cal stared at the device, his voice barely a whisper. A genocide of will. Before the shock could settle, the station rumbled. Lights flickered. The faint hum of impact echoed through the structure. Report, Hill demanded over his communicator. Direct hit on docking arm 3, came the urgent reply. Neridian Special Forces are forcing entry. Internal defense systems slowing. Them down, but not stopping them. Blackwood swore under his breath. They're coming here. We need to move the diplomats, Hill said, already keying security overrides. But Torin stood his ground. No, we submit this, he gestured. Toward the implant, along with this testimony, he said, indicating Inara, as formal evidence of systemic violation of sentient rights. We request immediate alliance protection and recognition of Valerin autonomy. He tapped a device on his wrist, projecting a luminous document in the air. The Declaration of the Diaspora. Prepared in secret, waiting for truth. Blackwood scanned it quickly. This changes everything. Before anyone could speak, the chamber doors exploded inward. Smoke and shrapnel filled the room. Through the haze strode a Neridian strike team, armor gleaming, weapons drawn. Their leader, taller than the rest, stepped forward, surrender. The Valerin and the neural device, he barked. They are property of the Neridian Council. Alex didn't wait. He grabbed Inara and dove behind a conference table as Blackwood's team opened fire. The chamber erupted in chaos, diplomats ducking for cover. Energy blasts scorching the air. Captain Hill drew a pulse pistol and returned fire, pinning 2 Neridians behind a shattered pillar. Get them out of here, he shouted over the din. Alex pulled Inara to her feet, grabbing the container with the implant from Dr. Kwan as they ran. This way. Behind them, Torin staggered, struck by a pulse round to the chest. He collapsed to the floor, emerald blood staining his robes. No. Inara cried, struggling to go back. We can't save him, Alex said, voice hard. But we can save everything he just gave us. They burst through a service door, winding into the narrow maintenance corridors. Alex led them like a man possessed, blaster drawn, eyes sharp. Dr. Kwan followed close behind, breath ragged but determined. At an emergency access shaft. They found the lift offline power diverted during the breach. Ladder, Alex said, prying the manual doors apart. Go. They climbed down 2 levels, the station groaning under the stress of invasion. Panic echoed in the distance. Sirens screamed. At the bottom, they pushed through a crowd of fleeing personnel. Bay. 12 waited, and so did Blackwood, bloodied but alive, ushering the remaining Valerin diplomats aboard the sleek Alliance shuttle. You made it, he said, relief bleeding into his voice. We lost Hill, 2 of my men, and Ambassador Torin. Inara's knees buckled, grief crashing down. Alex caught her before she fell. They died for a future, Blackwood said quietly. Let's make sure they didn't die for nothing. Inside the shuttle, the hum of systems was already building. Alex helped Inara strap in. She was trembling grief. Rage, clarity. I never wanted anyone to die for me, she whispered. They didn't, Alex said, brushing hair from her eyes. They died for what you represent, for what we can change. As the shuttle lifted off, the station fell behind. In a flurry of fire and shadow, Neridian soldiers stormed into the hangar too late, their blasts ricocheting harmlessly off the shuttle's reinforced hull. From the cockpit, Blackwood called back. Brace for jump. Stars stretched and collapsed. The ship tore into hyperspace. Leaving Vega Station and the past behind, Inara turned to Alex, eyes wet but defiant. What now? He took her hand. Now we tell the truth. All of it? And as the stars burned around them, a human who had once simply refused to let an alien woman eat, alone held the future in his hands. They had started with a meal on a curb. They were now racing toward a revolution. Asterisk 6 months later. The sky over Greenville burned golden orange as twin suns dipped beneath the jagged horizon. The old dust-blown outpost, once a symbol of isolation and silent cruelty, now thrived with purpose. Gleaming alloy walkways crisscrossed newly built housing units. Valerin and Neridian children played beneath fusion lamps. Markets bustled with voices in a dozen dialects. And above it all, a banner fluttered in the wind marked with both the Alliance crest and the sigils of Valerin and Neridian unity. Sleek diplomatic shuttle descended through the sky, drawing curious glances from the civilians below. Its polished hull bore the markings of the Alliance diplomatic corps, and its destination was unmistakable, the newly christened Unity Pavilion at the heart of Green VIL. Inside the shuttle. Major Ambassador Alexander Grath adjusted his formal uniform, brushing imaginary lint from his shoulder. A medal, polished to a mirror sheen, caught the last of the fading sunlight. The nameplate on his chest read not just his own name, but a title, co-author, Grath Valerin Accords. Nervous? Asked a soft voice beside him. Inara's hand slipped into his. Her silver-white hair had grown out since the day he'd rescued her, now styled in an elegant sweep that framed her regal features. She wore a diplomat's robes Valerin in design, but interwoven with Alliance. Blue, and walked with the quiet confidence of someone who no longer apologized for existing. Just thinking, Alex murmured. About what? About how last time I landed here, I was being exiled, he said. Now they're throwing us a treaty signing. Inara smiled, her amber eyes glowing. And naming a civic plaza after you. Alex groaned. Don't remind me. The shuttle touched down, and the ramp extended with ceremony. Commander Colonel Blackwood waited at the foot, flanked by Alliance honor guards. He extended a hand, his face creased with something resembling a smile. Welcome back to Neridian, Ambassador. Grath, he said. Everything's prepared for the ceremony. They stepped out into the crowd. Thousands had gathered humans, Valerins, Neridians. Not protesting, celebrating. Flags waved. A choir of mixed species sang an anthem crafted for the occasion. Its lyrics built around a single, now iconic phrase. No one eats alone. At the edge of the plaza stood the diner. The diner. Renovated, polished, but still unmistakable. A plaque now hung on the outer wall, engraved in standard Valerin script and Neridian glyphs. Here, one human sat beside one Valerin, and history changed. The proprietor, once a man who enforced outside-only rules, now greeted them with a deep bow. Honored guests, he said, his standard noticeably improved. Your table is ready. They sat at a booth by the window. The view looked out onto the curb where it had all begun. 2 bowls of purple stew were placed before them, this time served with silverware and fresh garnishes. Wine was poured. Candles flickered. Inara looked down at her bowl, then at him. Would you believe me if I said this still feels unreal? Alex reached for her hand. Not one bit. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. Their toast was simple. To unlikely beginnings, Alex said. To unexpected futures, Inara added. Later, they walked through the newly constructed Central Park, a tranquil space, filled with flora from both Valerin and Neridian worlds. Bioluminescent vines twined with native tree branches. Sculptures depicted moments from the Revolution, the curb, the trial at Alliance Council, the fall of the neural implant factories. I received a message from diplomat Nara, Inara said softly as they paused at a glowing fountain. The first Valerin Cultural Center is opening on the homeworld next week. That's incredible. They're featuring my paintings, she added, cheeks tinting darker. 3 pieces, including the one of the curb. Alex smiled. I knew that sketchbook you kept was dangerous. She leaned into him. They asked to display your uniform too. Let's not get crazy, he chuckled. But she was quiet after that, until they reached the foot of the fountain. There's something I want to ask you, he said. Inara turned toward him, puzzled. He dropped to one knee. Her breath caught. Alex opened a small velvet box. Inside, nestled on a bed of black silk, was a ring forged from twisted silver alloy, set with 3 amber stones, the color of her eyes. No tradition from Earth. No tradition. From Valerin. A creation entirely their own. In Valerin tradition, she whispered, a proposal must come with a sacrifice. The life-bonding gift. I gave up my career, my command, and nearly my life, Alex said. But it was never a sacrifice. It was a choice. You were always worth it. Tears welled in her eyes. Yes, she said, voice thick. By every tradition, yes. They kissed under the light of Viga's twin moons, as applause rose behind them from those who'd followed. The next morning, they stood on the steps of the Unity Pavilion as the final provisions of the Grath-Valerin Accords were enacted. Neural implants were banned. All known devices were ordered to be extracted. Valerins were granted full rights across Alliance Space. Ambassador Inara, Grath, the title freshly minted, presented a speech that echoed through subspace relays across the galaxy. We were once silenced, not by force, but by chemicals and fear. Today, we speak not just for ourselves, but for every voice that was ever stolen. The applause was thunderous. Alex, standing beside her, turned as a familiar face emerged from the crowd. Commander Harris, retired now. Older, but proud. He gave Alex a nod that spoke volumes. Alex approached him. Did you ever find her? He asked quietly. The woman from Proxima? Harris looked down at the ground. Double quotes, no. But because of what you two started, maybe someone like her never has to be lost again. As the crowd dispersed and Inara joined Alex once more, she leaned into him. What now, Ambassador? Alex smiled, slipping his arm around her. Now we make sure no one ever eats outside again. She grinned. Unless they want to. For our wedding. I was thinking tables on the curb, just for old time's sake. He laughed, heart full. I love the way you think, Ambassador Grath. They walked forward together, hand in hand, symbols of a new age. Not just human, not just Valerin. Something more. The future built not on power, but on decency. A revolution born from one meal, shared by 2 souls, on a cold curb in a forgotten town.